The day I moved into Maplewood Estates in Columbus, Ohio, I thought I had finally made it, but looking back now, I realized that was the day my peaceful existence ended and my war with the Homeowners Association began. My name is Jake Branson, and I am a 32-year-old software developer who works from home. I bought a beautiful 3-bedroom house in this gated community because it seemed perfect. Nice neighbors, well-maintained roads, and a clubhouse with amenities. What I did not account for was Barbara Wellington, the president of our HOA, who had apparently made it her life's mission to ensure that every single resident lived according to her exact specifications. The first few weeks were fine. I kept to myself, decorated my house the way I wanted inside, and started enjoying my back porch, which overlooked a small pond. October in Ohio meant the weather was getting colder, and I loved sitting on my porch with my laptop, working while breathing in the crisp autumn air. The problem was that by mid-October, it was getting too cold to sit outside comfortably without some help. That is when I bought the space heater. It was a simple outdoor propane heater, the kind you see at restaurants with outdoor seating. I set it up on my covered porch, and it was perfect. I could work outside, stay warm, and enjoy the view. I thought nothing of it until the letter arrived. The envelope was official-looking, with the Maplewood Estates logo embossed on the corner. Inside was a typed letter, signed by Barbara Wellington herself, informing me that outdoor heating devices were strictly prohibited according to Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the HOA bylaws. I had to remove the heater immediately or face a fine of $200 per day. I read the letter 3 times, convinced it was a joke. I pulled out my copy of the HOA bylaws that I had received when I closed on the house. Sure enough, buried deep in the document was a clause about outdoor heating devices being prohibited due to fire hazards and aesthetic concerns. I had never noticed it before because who reads every single line of an HOA document that is over 70 pages long? I decided to handle it diplomatically. I called the HOA office and asked to speak with Barbara Wellington. The receptionist, a woman named Gloria who sounded tired, put me through. "This is Barbara," the voice on the other end said, crisp and businesslike. "Hi, Barbara. This is Jake Branson from 412 Willow Lane. I received a letter about my space heater, and I was hoping we could discuss it." "There is nothing to discuss, Mr. Branson. The rules are clearly stated in the bylaws. I understand that, but the heater is on my covered porch, not visible from the street, and it is completely safe. I use it so I can work outside. The rules apply to all outdoor areas of your property, visible or not. The heater must be removed by the end of the week, or fines will begin accruing. Is there any way to appeal this or get an exception? You may present your case at the next HOA meeting, which is in 2 weeks. However, I can tell you right now that exceptions are rarely granted. The rules exist for everyone's benefit." Her tone made it clear the conversation was over. I thanked her and hung up, already annoyed. I removed the space heater that afternoon and stored it in my garage, but I was not happy about it. The porch felt useless now. Every time I tried to sit outside, I lasted maybe 10 minutes before the cold drove me back inside. 2 weeks later, I attended my first HOA meeting. It was held in the clubhouse on a Wednesday evening, and about 30 residents showed up. Barbara Wellington sat at the front table with 4 other board members. She was exactly what I expected. A woman in her late 40s with perfectly styled blonde hair, wearing a pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She had the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. When it came time for resident comments, I raised my hand and was called on. "Hi, everyone. I am Jake Branson from Willow Lane. I wanted to appeal the decision about outdoor heaters. I have a propane heater that I use on my covered porch so I can work outside during colder weather. It is safe, not visible from the street, and does not affect anyone else. I was hoping the board might reconsider the rule or grant me an exception. Barbara did not even pause before responding. Mr. Branson, as I explained on the phone, the rules are in place for everyone's safety and to maintain the aesthetic standards of our community. If we make an exception for you, we will have to make exceptions for everyone, and that defeats the purpose of having rules at all. But the heater is on my back porch. Nobody can even see it except me and maybe the ducks on the pond. A few people chuckled, but Barbara's expression did not change. The answer is no, Mr. Branson. If you continue to use the heater, fines will be assessed. Is there anything else? I sat down, frustrated and embarrassed. After the meeting, a few neighbors came up to me and sympathized. One older gentleman named Frank told me that Barbara had been HOA president for 6 years and ran the community like her personal fiefdom. She once fined me because my mailbox post was the wrong shade of black, he said, shaking his head. I had to repaint it 3 times before she approved it. I went home that night angry but determined. If Barbara Wellington wanted to play hardball, I could play too. I just needed to figure out how. The idea came to me a few days later while I was shopping online for winter clothes. I saw an advertisement for heated clothing, the kind that uses battery-powered heating elements sewn into the fabric. There were heated jackets, heated pants, heated gloves, and even full heated suits designed for people who worked outdoors in extreme cold. That was when it hit me. If I could not use a space heater on my porch, there was nothing in the bylaws that said I could not wear a heated suit. I checked the document again, reading every section carefully. There were rules about outdoor furniture, decorations, structures, and equipment, but absolutely nothing about personal clothing. I ordered the most ridiculous heated suit I could find online. It was a bright orange, full-body snowsuit with built-in heating elements throughout the torso, arms, and legs. It came with a rechargeable battery pack that clipped to the waist and provided up to 8 hours of heat. It was designed for ice fishermen and Arctic construction workers, and it was absolutely perfect for my purposes. When the suit arrived, I tried it on immediately. It was bulky and made me look like an astronaut, but it worked incredibly well. I could sit on my porch in 30-degree weather and feel like I was in a sauna. I started wearing it every day while working outside, and it felt great to reclaim my porch. I knew Barbara would eventually notice, but I did not care. I was following the rules to the letter, even if I was bending the spirit of them. It took about a week before I got the phone call. Mr. Branson, this is Barbara Wellington. I have received reports that you are wearing some sort of unusual outfit on your porch. Can you explain what that is about? It is a heated suit, Barbara. Since I cannot use a space heater, I decided to wear a suit with built-in heating elements. It keeps me warm while I work outside. There was a long pause. I see. Well, I will need to review the bylaws to see if this is acceptable. I already checked. There is nothing in the bylaws about personal clothing. I am allowed to wear whatever I want on my own property. Another pause, longer this time. We will discuss this at the next board meeting. In the meantime, I would appreciate it if you would refrain from wearing that outfit. I am afraid I cannot do that, Barbara. I need to work, and my porch is the best place for me to do it. Unless you can show me a rule that prohibits my clothing, I will continue to wear the suit. She hung up without saying goodbye. I felt a small surge of victory. The next HOA meeting was 3 weeks away, and I made sure to attend. This time, I wore the heated suit to the meeting itself. I walked into the clubhouse looking like I was about to embark on an expedition to Antarctica. The battery pack was fully charged, and I had the heat turned up to maximum. I was sweating within minutes, but the looks on everyone's faces made it worth it. Barbara stared at me as I took my seat in the back row. Several other residents whispered and pointed, but nobody said anything directly to me. When the meeting started, Barbara immediately added an emergency agenda item to discuss inappropriate attire on personal property. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice tight with barely controlled anger, "we need to address a situation that has come to our attention. One of our residents has been wearing an outrageous outfit on his porch that is visible to other residents and is not in keeping with the standards of our community." I raised my hand. "I am assuming you are talking about me, Barbara." "Yes, Mr. Branson. Your orange suit is a visual distraction and does not align with the aesthetic standards we have worked hard to maintain. The suit is heated clothing, which I need because you will not let me use a space heater. There is nothing in the bylaws that prohibits what I wear on my own property." One of the other board members, a man named Richard, spoke up. "Mr. Branson, while there may not be a specific rule about clothing, we do have general standards about maintaining the appearance of the community. Your suit could be considered a violation of those standards." "That is a huge stretch, Richard. The bylaws talk about maintaining lawns, painting houses approved colors, and not leaving trash out. They say nothing about what residents wear. If you want to fine me for wearing clothes, you are going to have a hard time defending that legally." Barbara's face was turning red. "Mr. Branson, you are being deliberately difficult. The spirit of the rules is clear." "The spirit of the rules does not hold up in court, Barbara. The letter of the rules does, and according to the letter, I am not violating anything." The room was silent. A few residents looked uncomfortable, but others seemed to be enjoying the show. Barbara clearly wanted to say more, but she held back. "We will be consulting with our attorney about this matter," she finally said. "In the meantime, I would strongly encourage you to reconsider your behavior. And I would strongly encourage you to reconsider the space heater ban. If you let me use the heater, I will stop wearing the suit. Problem solved." "That is not happening, Mr. Branson. Then neither is this." I sat through the rest of the meeting in my heated suit, sweating profusely but refusing to show any discomfort. When it was over, several residents came up to me and the reactions were mixed. Some thought I was being childish, but others loved it. Frank, the older gentleman I had met before, clapped me on the back. "That was the most entertaining meeting we have had in years," he said, grinning. "Barbara looked like she was going to have a stroke." "I am just trying to work on my porch," I said, shrugging. "If she wants to make a federal case out of it, that is her choice." Over the next few weeks, the situation escalated. Barbara sent me multiple letters threatening fines, but she never actually assessed any because her attorney apparently told her she did not have legal grounds. I continued wearing the heated suit on my porch every day, and I started wearing it to every HOA meeting as well. The suit became my signature. People in the neighborhood started calling me the Orange Astronaut. Some residents thought it was hilarious, while others agreed with Barbara that I was being disrespectful. I did not care. I was making a point and I was not backing down. In December, Barbara tried a new tactic. She called an emergency meeting to propose a new bylaw specifically prohibiting excessively bright or unusual clothing visible from common areas or other properties. The proposal was clearly aimed at me. I showed up to that meeting in my heated suit, naturally, and I was prepared. When the proposal was introduced, I stood up immediately. "I would like to speak against this proposal." Barbara looked like she wanted to deny me, but she could not without looking even more petty than she already did. "Go ahead, Mr. Branson," she said through gritted teeth. This proposed bylaw is vague, unenforceable, and a clear case of selective enforcement. What counts as excessively bright? What counts as unusual? If this passes, you could potentially fine anyone wearing a red jacket or a Hawaiian shirt in their own yard. This is a ridiculous overreach of HOA authority, and I think everyone here knows this proposal only exists because Barbara does not like my heated suit. Several residents nodded in agreement. I continued. Furthermore, I have done some research, and there is legal precedent in Ohio for homeowners successfully suing HOAs that attempt to regulate personal behavior in unreasonable ways. If this bylaw passes and you try to fine me, I will take this to court, and I will win. You will waste the community's money on legal fees defending an indefensible position, all because Barbara Wellington cannot handle someone finding a creative solution to a problem she created. The room erupted in conversation. Barbara tried to regain control, banging her gavel on the table. "That is enough, Mr. Branson. We will take your comments under advisement." But the damage was done. Several other residents spoke up, echoing my concerns. One woman pointed out that her teenage daughter liked to wear bright pink clothing and asked if that would be prohibited too. Another man asked if his work uniform, which was a bright yellow safety vest, would violate the rule if he wore it in his yard. By the end of the meeting, it was clear the proposal did not have the support it needed. Barbara looked furious, but there was nothing she could do. The vote was postponed pending further review, which was HOA speak for "this is not going to happen." I went home feeling victorious, but I knew Barbara was not done yet. She had made this personal, and she was not the type to give up easily. I was right. In January, things took a darker turn. I started noticing small acts of harassment. My trash cans would be knocked over the night before pickup, spilling garbage across my driveway. Someone filed a complaint that my grass was too long, even though I had just mowed it. I received a notice that my house numbers were not regulation size, despite being the same numbers that were on the house when I bought it. Every complaint was signed by Barbara Wellington or one of her cronies on the board. It was clear they were trying to bury me in petty fines and violations, hoping I would either give up or make a mistake they could use against me. I documented everything. I took photos, saved every letter, and kept detailed notes about the timeline of events. I also installed security cameras around my property, which was allowed under the bylaws. The cameras proved to be a smart investment. One night in late January, I was reviewing footage and saw something disturbing. Around 2 in the morning, a car had pulled up in front of my house, and someone got out and knocked over my trash cans. The camera caught a clear image of the license plate. I ran the plate through a reverse lookup service online, and my stomach dropped when I saw the result. The car was registered to Richard Turner, one of the HOA board members who always sided with Barbara. I had proof that the board was actively harassing me. The question was what to do with it. I decided to go directly to the police. The next morning, I drove to the Columbus Police Department and filed a report for harassment and vandalism. I brought all my documentation, including the video footage showing Richard knocking over my trash cans. The officer who took my report, a middle-aged woman named Officer Davis, listened carefully and watched the video. "This is definitely harassment," she said. "And technically, he is trespassing on your property to knock over your trash cans, which could be considered criminal mischief. We will follow up with Mr. Turner." "Thank you," I said. "I just wanted to stop. I know it seems petty, but this has been going on for months." "It does not seem petty at all, Mr. Branson. HOA disputes can get ugly, and when people start breaking the law, we take it seriously." A few days later, I got a call from Officer Davis informing me that Richard Turner had been questioned and admitted to knocking over my trash cans. He claimed he was just playing a prank, but Officer Davis told him that any further incidents would result in criminal charges. Richard was given a warning, and I was told to contact the police immediately if anything else happened. I assumed that would be the end of it, but I was wrong again. At the February HOA meeting, I expected some tension, but I was not prepared for what happened. Barbara Wellington started the meeting by announcing that I was being fined $5,000 for creating a hostile environment within the community. I stood up immediately. "Excuse me, what are you talking about? You filed a police report against a board member, Mr. Branson. That kind of action is detrimental to the community and violates our code of conduct. Your board member was vandalizing my property, Barbara. I had every right to file a police report. That is a matter of interpretation. The board has voted and the fine stands." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly. You are fining me $5,000 for reporting a crime committed by one of your board members." Barbara hesitated, realizing I was recording. "Mr. Branson, you cannot record this meeting without permission." "Actually, I can. Ohio is a one-party consent state, which means I only need my own permission to record a conversation I am part of, and I want this on record. You are retaliating against me for reporting criminal activity." The room went silent. Even Barbara's supporters on the board looked uncomfortable. "This is unacceptable," I continued. "I am going to contact an attorney about this fine, and I am going to make sure the entire community knows what is happening here." I walked out of the meeting and went straight home. I was shaking with anger, but I knew I had to stay calm and strategic. This had gone beyond a petty dispute about a space heater. This was targeted harassment and retaliation, and it was illegal. The next day, I contacted a real estate attorney named Michael Chen who specialized in HOA disputes. I brought him all my documentation, including the video footage, the letters, the police report, and the recording from the meeting. Michael listened to everything and then leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "This is one of the worst cases of HOA overreach I have seen in a while," he said. "They have made several serious mistakes. First, they have no legal authority to fine you for filing a police report. That is clear retaliation. Second, the harassment and vandalism by a board member opens them up to significant liability. Third, their attempts to regulate your clothing are absurd and would never hold up in court." "So what do we do?" I asked. "We send them a demand letter outlining all the violations and giving them a chance to back down. If they do not, we file a lawsuit against the HOA and the individual board members for harassment, retaliation, and violations of your property rights." "How much is this going to cost me?" "I will work on contingency. If we win, the HOA will have to pay your legal fees along with damages. I take cases like this because I hate seeing HOAs abuse their power." Michael drafted a detailed demand letter and sent it to the HOA board via certified mail. The letter outlined every violation, included evidence of the harassment, and demanded that all fines be rescinded, that the board members responsible be removed, and that I be allowed to use my space heater without restriction. The letter gave them 14 days to respond. During those 2 weeks, I continued wearing my heated suit to make a point. I also printed out copies of the demand letter and the evidence and distributed them to every house in the neighborhood. I wanted everyone to know what their HOA board was doing. The response was overwhelming. I received dozens of messages from neighbors expressing support. Several people told me they had their own horror stories about Barbara Wellington and the board. One couple said they had been fined repeatedly for having a vegetable garden in their backyard, which apparently violated some aesthetic standard. Another family had been harassed because their teenage son sometimes left his skateboard on the driveway. It turned out that Barbara had been running the HOA like a dictatorship for years, and people were fed up. My situation was just the catalyst that brought it all to light. On the 13th day after the demand letter was sent, I received a response. It was not from Barbara Wellington or the board. It was from a different attorney representing the HOA, and the tone was very different from anything I had received before. The letter stated that the board was willing to enter into mediation to resolve the dispute. It also stated that the $5,000 fine would be rescinded pending the outcome of mediation. However, it made no mention of the space heater or any of the other issues. Michael advised me that this was a positive sign, but that we should not agree to mediation unless the HOA was willing to address all the issues, not just drop the fine. They are trying to make this go away quietly, Michael said, but we need to push for real changes. Otherwise, they will just start harassing you again as soon as the heat dies down. We responded with our own letter, outlining specific terms we wanted included in any settlement. The list included allowing me to use my space heater, removing Barbara Wellington and Richard Turner from the board, implementing new oversight procedures to prevent future abuses, and compensating me for the time and stress caused by their harassment. The back and forth continued for another 3 weeks. During that time, something unexpected happened. A group of residents, inspired by my fight, organized a petition to recall the entire HOA board. Ohio law allows for HOA board recalls if enough residents sign a petition, and it turned out that a lot of people wanted Barbara gone. The petition gathered signatures quickly. Within 2 weeks, they had more than enough to trigger a recall vote. Barbara tried to fight it, but the bylaws were clear. A recall vote had to be held within 30 days of a valid petition being submitted. The vote was scheduled for late March, and the entire neighborhood was buzzing with anticipation. Barbara and her supporters tried to campaign, but the damage was done. Too many people had been mistreated by her over the years, and my situation had finally given them the courage to fight back. I continued wearing my heated suit to every meeting and every HOA event, partly out of spite and partly because it had become a symbol of resistance against Barbara's tyranny. People started wearing orange in solidarity. It was absurd and wonderful at the same time. The recall vote was held on a Saturday morning in the clubhouse. The turnout was huge, with over 70% of the neighborhood showing up to vote. Michael advised me to be there but to stay quiet and let the process play out. The votes were counted publicly, and the results were announced that afternoon. Barbara Wellington, Richard Turner, and 2 other board members who had consistently supported them were all recalled by overwhelming margins. A new board was elected on the spot, composed of residents who had campaigned on transparency and reasonable enforcement of the rules. Barbara left the clubhouse in tears, refusing to speak to anyone. Richard looked shell-shocked. It was a complete and total victory. The new board held their first meeting a week later, and their first order of business was to address my situation. They rescinded all the fines that had been assessed against me, formally apologized for the harassment, and amended the bylaws to allow outdoor heaters as long as they met basic safety standards. I was also awarded a settlement of $10,000 for the harassment and stress I had endured. The money came from the HOA's insurance, not from the residents, which was important to me. I did not want my neighbors to suffer because of Barbara's actions, but the story did not end there. In April, I received a call from Officer Davis at the Columbus Police Department. "Mr. Branson, I wanted to let you know that we have been investigating some financial irregularities related to your HOA. During the transition to the new board, they discovered that Barbara Wellington had been misappropriating HOA funds for personal use. We are talking about a significant amount of money, possibly over $50,000. I was stunned. "Are you serious?" "Very serious. We have been working with the new board and an auditor to trace the funds. It looks like she was using HOA money to pay for personal expenses, including vacations, shopping, and even some home renovations. We are building a case for embezzlement and fraud. What happens now? We will be arresting her soon. I just wanted to give you a heads up since you were so involved in bringing the board's misconduct to light." Barbara Wellington was arrested 2 weeks later on multiple counts of embezzlement, fraud, and theft. The local news covered the story, and it became a minor scandal in Columbus. The HOA was forced to pursue legal action to recover the stolen funds, and Barbara ultimately pleaded guilty to avoid a trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay full restitution. Richard Turner, meanwhile, was charged with criminal mischief for the vandalism on my property. He pleaded no contest and was given probation and community service. As for me, I finally got to use my space heater on my porch without any hassle. I also kept the heated suit, though I only wore it occasionally for fun. It had become a conversation piece, a reminder of one of the strangest battles I had ever fought. The new HOA board was night and day compared to the old one. They focused on actual community improvements rather than nitpicking every tiny violation. They organized neighborhood events, improved the common areas, and generally made Maplewood Estates a place people actually wanted to live. I became somewhat of a local legend in the neighborhood. People called me the guy who took down Barbara Wellington with an orange snowsuit. It was silly, but it was also true. Sometimes the best way to fight petty tyranny is with creativity and stubbornness. Looking back, I am glad I did not back down. It would have been easier to just stop using my porch or move to a different neighborhood, but that would have meant letting Barbara win. Instead, I stood up for myself, and in doing so, I helped free an entire community from years of abuse and corruption. I still live in Maplewood Estates today, and I love it. The neighborhood has changed for the better, and I played a part in making that happen. And on cold evenings, when I sit on my porch with my space heater running and my laptop on my knees, I smile knowing that sometimes the smallest acts of defiance can lead to the biggest victories. The heated suit hangs in my closet now, a bizarre trophy from a bizarre battle. Every once in a while, when it is particularly cold or when I am feeling nostalgic, I will put it on and wear it to an HOA meeting just to make people laugh. The new board always gets a kick out of it. Frank, the older gentleman who supported me from the beginning, sometimes jokes that I should run for the HOA board myself. I always decline. I have had enough of HOA politics to last a lifetime. I am happy just being a regular resident who can use his space heater in peace. But I did learn some valuable lessons from the whole experience. I learned that standing up to bullies is important, even when it seems easier to back down. I learned that communities are stronger when people support each other against injustice. And I learned that sometimes the most ridiculous solutions to problems can be the most effective. The space heater saga, as people in the neighborhood now call it, became a cautionary tale about what happens when HOA boards have too much power and too little oversight. The new board implemented term limits, regular audits, and a resident committee to review all fines and violations before they are assessed. These changes have prevented any one person from accumulating the kind of power Barbara had. Several months after everything settled down, I ran into Barbara Wellington at a grocery store in Columbus. She saw me and immediately looked away, clearly hoping I would not notice her. But I walked over anyway. "Barbara," I said, keeping my tone neutral. She looked at me with a mixture of fear and resentment. "What do you want?" "I just wanted to say that I hope you have learned something from all this. You hurt a lot of people with your behavior, and you brought all the consequences on yourself." She stared at me for a moment, and I thought she might apologize or at least show some remorse. Instead, she said, "You ruined my life over a stupid space heater." "No, Barbara, you ruined your own life by being a petty tyrant and a thief. I just stood up for myself." She turned and walked away without another word. I felt a pang of pity for her, but it was brief. She had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. As I drove home that day, I thought about how strange life can be. A year ago, I was just a guy who wanted to work on his porch. Now, I was the person who helped expose corruption and change an entire community for the better. All because I refused to accept an unreasonable rule and found a creative way to fight back. The heated suit was the key to everything. It was ridiculous enough to draw attention, but it was also perfectly legal and impossible for Barbara to fight. It frustrated her to the point where she made mistakes, and those mistakes exposed her for who she really was. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had just accepted the space heater ban and moved on. Barbara would probably still be running the HOA with an iron fist. Richard would still be harassing people, and nobody would have discovered the embezzlement until even more money was stolen. In a weird way, my stubbornness and my ridiculous heated suit saved the community. It is not the kind of heroism you see in movies, but it is real, and it mattered. Today, Maplewood Estates is a better place. People are friendlier, the board is more reasonable, and there is a sense of community that did not exist before. I am proud to have played a part in that transformation, even if my role was absurd. I still keep a copy of the original letter from Barbara banning my space heater. It is framed and hanging in my home office as a reminder that sometimes the smallest conflicts can lead to the biggest changes. And right next to it is a photo of me wearing the heated suit at an HOA meeting, looking like an orange astronaut and loving every second of it. The whole experience taught me that you should never underestimate the power of creative resistance. When someone tries to control you with unreasonable rules, sometimes the best response is not to argue on their terms, but to find a new way to approach the problem that they never saw coming. And if that means wearing a ridiculous heated suit to prove a point, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, it is not really about the space heater or the suit. It is about standing up for yourself and refusing to let petty tyrants control your life. I am Jake Branson, the guy who wore a heated suit to HOA meetings and accidentally became a neighborhood hero. And if I had to do it all over again, I would not change a thing. Well, except maybe I would have chosen a suit in a different color. Orange really is not my best look. But that is a small price to pay for freedom, justice, and the right to sit on my own porch with a space heater on a cold Ohio evening.